Welcome to the Wellbeing Room. In this episode, I'm going to continue my series called the Dementia Diaries. And this is part two of this series. I recorded part one earlier in the year. And this is just a follow on from my continuing experience with caring for my mother, who was diagnosed last year with vascular dementia. As part of this process, I've become more aware of the effect that having a parent with this illness has on my own well-being and state of mind. And it really is a big process that we have to go through as children of parents, and or even our grandparents perhaps experiencing this disease. I was exposed to dementia when I was younger. My mum's mother had it, and it was very confronting to see her decline over the years. And now I'm seeing this also in my mother's experience with it. And it's made me want to turn to find ways to understand how this disease works and how best to support someone who is going through this condition. And thankfully, I found a couple of really interesting books that have helped me and continue to help me better understand what is going on. And I wanted to share these books with you because if you maybe are going through a similar experience or have been through or may go through this in the future, then I want you to have some resources that you can turn to as well. So the first book that I actually found at an op shop a while ago, this was even before my mother had any signs of dementia, was the book Learning to Speak Alzheimer's, which is by Robert N. Butler. And I haven't finished reading this book, but it's given me some really good ideas about how the progression of the disease and what to expect. And although that is very confronting, it's good to know. And I think it's important when we find out that our parents or someone we love has this disease, it's good to know what to expect. We don't know the speed at which the disease will progress, but knowing the stages that someone will be going through as they progress through the disease is really important. So we know what to expect, so we can prepare ourselves basically for the worst, which is inevitable. The other book that I found really valuable is called Contented Dementia by Oliver James. And this is from the UK. And there's actually an Alzheimer's charity that has produced this book. And it actually is really, really interesting because it goes into the psychology behind what the person with Alzheimer's or dementia is experiencing and how we can use that understanding of their psychology to help them. It talks a lot about the anxiety that comes with losing your memory and losing your ability to think straight, and how we can support someone by using specific tools. And I just wanted to mention that this organization does actually have some online education opportunities. And I'm really keen to do their course. It's run over 2 consecutive weeks in a 3-hour block. And I'm really interested in signing up for that and doing that. I'm actually looking for some people who might want to do that with me, so we can actually get a session running for us in Australia here, because like I said, it's based in the UK. And yeah, it'd be great to have a session with some people, either, friends, family, people that I know, and work through it together and support each other. So if you're interested, if you're watching this recently after this gets published, then please get in touch or go look for this book online, or go to the I'll find out what the organization is called, and I'll put it in the show notes where you can get some more information about the education opportunities they have. But really it's about dealing with the anxiety that people have when they have dementia, because they can't remember things, because they have these memories, stored inside of them, and it's hard for them to retrieve them easily. And they're more or less just left with feelings. And we want them to experience good feelings rather than negative feelings. And we can do that by doing some really simple things, by understanding their history and then using that to support them in the present moment. So I really would recommend you get your hands on this book and potentially do the online education that comes with it. And I really think a lot of people working in the dementia field would really benefit from learning about that too. So please check the show notes for the information on that. Now, of course, when it comes to understanding dementia, part of what I've been sort of learning or leaning into is working out, how we can prevent this disease from actually happening to us. And, there's lots of different things we can do, and nothing is ever potentially going to stop us from getting this illness, depending on our genetics, on various other things in our lives. All we can do is do the best we can to try and prevent it. And, if it happens, it happens. And that's really unfortunate. But I do believe there are some things that we can do on a daily basis to ensure that we stay as healthy and as mindfully activated and present for as long as possible, and hopefully dodge that bullet. I really wouldn't wish this disease on anyone. But knowing that my grandmother had this disease, my mum now has this disease, there's every likely or possibility that I could also potentially get this disease. But I don't want to focus that and sort of catastrophize my future away. I want to enjoy my life and do as much as I can and be as healthy and strong and as vibrant for as long as possible. So there's some certain things that I think, and I would like to suggest now in this episode, that I think we can do as individuals to ensure that we can perhaps stave off this horrible disease for as long as possible as we age. So one thing that I think is really important is actually meditation. Yes, that's right. Meditation, being present with your thoughts on a daily basis, being calm and quiet and breathing and connecting to yourself. Yeah. So I generally only do 10 minutes of meditation a day, most days. I would like to do more. And I guess one of my goals can be to, increase that to either 2 10-minute sessions a day or 1 20-minute session a day or even longer. I think there's so many benefits in creating a meditation practice, and it helps to, and I did see this in an article not that long ago, that meditation actually can help reduce the incidence of Alzheimer's. It's a way to keep the brain healthy and strong. So I can find some more research about that. If I find it, I'll definitely put a link to that in the show notes as well. Another thing that I think is really helpful in preventing or delaying the onset of something like dementia is actually having an understanding of the progression of sickness and illness, and then doing things to ensure that progression slows down. So in macrobiotics, what we have is called the development of sickness. And there's these 7 stages that have been distilled to understand how disease progresses in the body. And by knowing the different stages and the order they go in, you can then start to rewind the clock and improve your health by taking on certain measures, such as eating better, eating what is right for you to support your healing process, and doing some lifestyle modifications that will also assist in that process. So in this 7 levels of sickness in macrobiotics, the first level is tiredness. And so by ensuring that we get good rest, we can reduce the incidence of tiredness. And we may be tired because, we stay up too late, we have too many stimulating foods, especially before bedtime. We might stimulate ourselves with our devices, so we're kind of a bit wired when we go to sleep. Maybe we just don't sleep well, we have insomnia. So these kinds of things we need to understand, get to the root cause of what's causing poor sleep, and causing tiredness. And then we can heal ourselves. Now, if we don't deal with the tiredness, then the next stage kicks in, and that is called lack of physical flexibility. So things like aches and pains start to become more prevalent as well. So the body's becoming a little bit more acidic. Muscles can become tight. We might get rigidity in our ability to move. We start aging more. I was talking last week in one of my yoga classes that the ability to stretch our arms above the head. When we lose that ability, that shows a decline in our physical capabilities and is actually a sign of aging. So just being able to stretch your arms above the head without too many aches, without restriction is really important. So when we have this lack of physical flexibility, we need to potentially change our diet so that we're not so acidic anymore. So acid creates, uncomfortableness in the joints. We might need to take up some exercise on a regular basis. And this can usually be rectified within a couple of months if we go at it properly. And of course, this will also, by moving more and being able to move more, it'll also help improve our sleep. Now, the next stage of the sickness progression is what's called toxicity of blood or blood disorders. And these can actually be cured within about 4 months. It takes about 4 months for all the red blood cells in your body to change. And so when there's blood toxicity and blood disorders, we get, things coming out in our skin potentially, like boils and rashes and itches. We also have that acidity in the blood, which leads to those aches and pains and what have you. And so by getting rid of that toxicity, by eating well, by discharging toxins, perhaps we need to cut down on certain foods like alcohol and sugar, and meat and dairy products that might be causing that toxicity. And also certain products in our environment, if we're using a lot of chemicals, things like unnatural deodorants that have chemicals in them, unnatural air fresheners, all those things we get. People buy a lot of this stuff. You may have it in your home, different things like cleaning products and air fresheners and body sprays and what have you. And they have a lot of chemicals in them, and this can create toxicity in our bodies. So ideally, clearing out those things from your system, clearing these things out from your home, again, cleaning up your diet to promote more health-giving foods like fresh fruit and vegetables, whole grains, etc. We can then start to reverse that process. Now, the next one up from that level, so level 4, is emotional tension and emotional disorders. Okay, so when this starts to build up, we find it hard to deal with stress in our lives. We might be angry, we might be depressed, we might have grief that we can't let go of. And this can take several months to up to a year to heal from. And it may require some further interventions like psychological treatment. I would avoid using drugs to deal with those things. But if you need, because that's again just another toxic substance that you're ingesting into your body. However, if you do need medication to deal with things like depression and anxiety, and that's an option that you need to take, then please do so. But just know that your body and your mind has the capacity to heal itself, to work through any issues that you might be holding on to. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that I really think people sometimes don't take responsibility for the trauma that they're holding inside their body. Maybe they need to forgive themselves. Maybe they need to forgive others. And I don't mean forgiving someone for something they've done that's wrong, but forgiving from a perspective of just knowing that you don't need to carry that trauma for the rest of your life, okay, so that you can move forward. So it's a little bit deeper on this emotional level. And so if we can deal with that, then we'll notice we start to feel better. That kind of emotional stress will also create seizing up in the body or create tension in our joints, and we won't be able to move as easily. And then, of course, we'll get tired as well because we're so stressed all the time, or angry or anxious. So it's a flow-on effect. So by addressing that issue, we can then address the other issues in the cycle. Now, I was also just wanted to mention, if you follow anything that of Dr. Gabor Mate, where he talks about trauma and the body and holding on to those things, there's studies that show that people who hold on to trauma throughout their life without seeking some sort of therapeutic process to let it go, whatever that might take, shown to have higher incidences of things like dementia. So there is a correlation between these things going on inside your body and potential sickness down the track. Okay, so after level 4, we come to level 5, which is degenerative processes and organ disease. So this is things like heart disease, diabetes, liver problems, etc. So, and I'm talking about type 2 diabetes more specifically. So when these processes start to happen, obviously, we all are told as you get older, go to your doctor for regular health checks and, check in to see that you don't have heart disease or lung disease or, COPD or diabetes and that type of thing. Because these are things that become more prevalent as we get older, as all the other things have built up. So we've been tired, we've not moved, we're lacking flexibility, our blood's getting toxic, we've got emotional tension and stress. And then the next thing is this degenerative process of the organs taking on the stress and the tension and the toxicity in our body. And it's got nowhere to go. So the organs start to fail and not work properly. So we can cure ourselves of these illnesses too. Things like diabetes and heart disease are reversible to an extent. And we can cure ourselves within 6 months to up to 3 years of these conditions if we work at it. And so, like I said earlier, we can reverse these processes. And by doing so, we just work through those stages going back down the line. And then level 6 is more nervous system dysfunction. So this would be things where the nervous system is deeply affected. So, for instance, Alzheimer's, dementia, Parkinson's, those sorts of diseases are the next level. And so if we don't address the previous levels, then there's every possibility that that next level, that nervous system disorder, will arise. And so it's important, like I said, to work on those levels before, nip them in the bud, deal with them, and hopefully you can dodge that bullet. Okay. And the 7th level, which I find it hard to explain, but it's this idea of arrogance, and being so arrogant that you're separate from the world, you're withdrawn from the world. You're kind of not participating in life properly, or there's these cycles of behavior that you're going through. And I remember my teacher talking about yin arrogance and yang arrogance. So yin arrogance is like this idea that I'm too weak, I can't change, I just have to deal with it. I'm old, I'm weak, nothing's going to change. I'm just going to be like that. And a lot of people think that way. A lot of people think, I'm getting old, I've just got to expect that my body's going to fail. There's nothing I can do about it. Okay. You don't have to think like that. That is an example of arrogance. And then the other side, yang arrogance, which is, I don't need to change. I don't need to change. Everything's fine. I might have a sore back. I might have, stress. I might, have a really bad disease, heart disease, but I don't need to change because, I just want to eat my meat and 3 veg and drink my alcohol every day because that makes me feel good. And that is an example of yang arrogance. Now, I don't want to point the finger or make you feel uncomfortable, but if that does make you feel uncomfortable, then just have a think about your health, about your well-being. I wanted to cover this because I think it's important to know that there is a development of sickness in the body. We don't just get sick like that. The body is constantly trying to create harmony and healing, and we can help or hinder that process by our daily actions. So I just really want to encourage you to think about what you're doing on a daily basis. And I say this all the time, what are you doing on a daily basis to support your health and healing? And another thing I heard the other day was this, we often think about, setting goals and things like that, but we don't often consider the consequences of our inaction. And it's the consequence. What I'm talking about here is consequences of inaction. If we notice we're degenerating steadily as we get older, tiredness, lack of physical flexibility, blood disorders, emotional tension, degenerative processes, nervous disorders. If we're going through these stages, they're the consequences of inaction. So what you want to do is to be taking some action. And I've had lovely stories of clients of mine who have changed the way they've been eating, who have been coming to yoga regularly, who are listening to this podcast and getting something out of it. So I'm hoping that by talking about this and sharing this with you today, that it might prompt you to look at things a slightly different way, to consider that you have the ability to take some control over the processes in your body, over the aging process, over the process of whether or not you will become unwell. And just to know that even if you do become unwell, you have the power to work on that, to change that, to reverse that, to support yourself to healing. And you may not heal 100%. You may not be able to cure what you have, but to manage it in a way that you can live as best a life as you can. I don't think we should ruminate on things. I've watched my mother over the years after her mother had dementia. And my mother's just been so focused on, reading the newspaper. Oh, they said eating blueberries is good to prevent dementia. So I'm just going to eat blueberries. But then she's also eating sugar and drinking coffee and having cakes and doing all these other things that are still creating these illness processes in her body. And there's trauma. And, we're not addressing the deeper issues that we might have to deal with. Now, Anil, saying all this, I am not a doctor. I'm not a physician. I'm merely someone who has been passionate about health and well-being for a very long time. And I feel it is my duty to share this with others, to help other people on a healing journey, because I have used this understanding to help heal myself in various circumstances throughout my life. So a lot of people think that giving up things like sugar and alcohol and meat and dairy products is just, a real pain in the ass. Like, I've got to give up that. I've got to stop eating sugar. I've got to stop drinking alcohol. I can't have coffee. And it's like this lack of, like, I can't live my life like that. That's all the good stuff. I really enjoy having sugar. I really enjoy having my coffee every day. I really enjoy drinking alcohol. It makes me feel relaxed. And yes, all those things may be true, but also understand that those foods can also create toxicity in your body, can create disease in your body. And like I said, it is your choice. I don't want to force you into thinking, because you are doing those things, that's a bad thing. Well, that's up to you how you perceive what I'm saying here today. But what I want you to know is that you can choose to do what you want. But just know there are consequences of your actions and there are consequences of your inaction. And ultimately, there's some bullets that are really hard to dodge. And I only wish the best for you and your loved ones. And that's pretty much what I wanted to share with you today. Just want to remind you again about the 2 books that I shared at the start of this episode, Contented Dementia and Learning to Speak Alzheimer's. I'll put the links and information about those 2 books into the show notes, so please go check them out. And just about the 7 stages of illness, and also the benefits of meditation as a way to protect yourself against these diseases that really we don't know if we're going to get them or not, but we can only do the best that we can and try and stay as healthy for as long as we possibly can. If this has brought up any feelings or if stuff that you need to talk about or share, please get in touch with a healthcare professional. I'm also happy to receive comments about this episode. So please leave a comment under the video, or if you're listening on Spotify, please reach out by email. I'll put my email details in the show notes as well. I really just wish the best for you and your loved ones. And the purpose of this podcast is to help educate and just share what I have learned on my own health and wellbeing journey so that I can support you on yours. So if you would like some help in navigating your health and wellbeing, please get in touch. I would love to work with you in this process as well. Also, if you find this podcast of value and you would love to contribute to keep this podcast running, please click on the link to support this show, which you'll find in the show notes as well. Until next time, I wish you the best and I hope that you stay well. See you later.